The boys are back. Hey guys, what's up guys to the video? This video is my spoiler and spoiler-free review of The Boys Season 3, Episodes 1 through 3. So that's right, we just got the first 3 episodes of one of my favorite shows of all time, The Boys. Now before we get into it, I am also giving away this Billy Butcher Funko Pop. This giveaway is going to be running until the end of Season 3, and all you have to do to enter is subscribe to the channel and also comment down below. Again, all you have to do to enter is subscribe and comment on this video, but if you want more entries to the giveaway and a higher chance to win this Billy Butcher Funko Pop, all you have to do is come back every single week on my spoiler reviews for the Boys episodes and comment on those videos as well. And at the end of the season, in my season finale reaction, I'll be announcing the winner for this Funko Pop. But that's it for all the giveaway details. Again, if you want to enter, all you have to do is subscribe, comment on this video, and comment on all the future Boys videos. We'll also be giving extra entries. And as always, if you guys are new here and you enjoy all the content on the channel, make sure to subscribe button, notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a video or go live. Both wasting more time. Let's get into it, talking spoiler free about The Boys episodes 1 through 3. Again, if you want to click and skip to the spoiler parts of all the episodes, you can click the timestamps in the description. But again, starting it off with spoiler free, we start this season with a 1-year time jump, and that's said in the description, so I do not think that's a spoiler. But honestly, I love the overall story we have going on here, and we have a lot going on. We have stuff with Mother's Milk, Huey, Starlight, obviously Butcher, and Homelander. And Homelander is absolutely insane thus far in the season. Again, I've only seen the first 3 episodes, but he is so great. Anthony Starr returning as Homelander. He is just phenomenal in this role, and he is just scary as well. Everything about this character of Homelander clicks for me. This season is the best Anthony Starr has been as Homelander, and I just think, again, it works on all levels. The story of Homelander thus far in this season is also really good. I will say at times it does feel like there's a little bit too much going on, and I think the biggest part of that is Frenchie's storyline, and I don't want to get too deep into it as I didn't really know much of his storyline going into the season, as they didn't really advertise it much, and I'll get into that in my spoiler talk. Again, I don't hate Frenchie. I actually think he is a cool character, but unless this story is going to have some massive payoff towards the end of the season, which I hope it will, this storyline doesn't seem like it's going to be something that is too actually crazy in my opinion, but we'll see how all that plays out. I do have to talk about Starlight and Huey. Their romance in the first episode is so good, and then, you know, the story plays out and we see stuff happen and it works in my opinion. Just like this Homelander story that keeps evolving over these 3 episodes, this is one relationship that is basically at the forefront of all 3 of these first premiere episodes. And I think, again, it all clicks together. I think it fits the pieces. Everything kind of comes together. You know, we had that reveal of Victoria in the finale of last season, and that is a reoccurring part, at least in the first episode for the most part. It wasn't too big in the second 2 without giving too much away, but I still really liked Huey's like part of the story, Starlight's part of the story, but here's their romance together is really good. And then finally, the last spoiler free thing I can talk about without giving too much away is the Butcher and the Compound V stuff. It is so good. I mean, technically in this show right now they're calling it Temp V, which is also V23, I think that's the name is. It's really cool, and I love the way that they're implementing into the show this far. It's not something huge so far in the show. I've read interviews and watched some of the interviews of the cast, and it seems like it's going to be something really prominent towards the middle and end of the show. And next week's episode will be the halfway point of the show officially, so I'm guessing that next week they'll kind of step it up with the impact of V23 and how that's going to impact the story and stuff like that. But thus far throughout the story, I like how they're utilizing it, and I really just like Butcher as a whole in this show so far. And I mean, in the first 2 seasons, he's absolutely spectacular, and that doesn't go away at all. We also have Ryan coming back, which is Homelander's son. Technically, Butcher's taking care of him now, but there's great things in the story with that as well. And again, I can't talk about it too much because I don't want to give away stuff in the spoiler-free section of this video. So now we're going to be moving on, just talking about full-on spoilers for episode 1 of The Boys Season 3. If you haven't already seen the show, like this video and come back to it later so you can hear all of my spoiler thoughts. But starting it off, I want to talk about Butcher and Ryan because they are one hell of a duo. You know, they go through some stuff in episodes 2 and 3, and I'm not going to talk spoilers for 2 and 3 in the spoiler talk for episode 1, just in case you haven't seen it, but I'll be talking about their relationship more in the spoiler talks for episodes 2 and 3. So again, timestamps in the description down below. But I will say also, I forgot that Stormfront was alive. I don't know why I thought she died at the end of season 2, but you know, we stuff happens in episode 2 with Stormfront, which is pretty interesting, and that drives Homelander even more insane, but we'll get to that later. Again, I completely forgot she was alive. The condition that she's in is horrific. She has like no arm, her eye is completely gouged out, she has like half a leg. Like, it is insane because obviously she was a Nazi, and we kind of get that a lot in this episode where we kind of see Homelander dealing with, I guess, the social media side and I guess the publicity side of Stormfront coming out as a Nazi and all that kind of stuff. Like, he is the one being pressed about all of this, not anyone else. So it's very interesting to see how that's all playing out in Homelander's story. But moving on, at the end of episode 1, we get that reveal of Victoria being Nadia, which is like that creepy dude that came to the office asking for Nadia. I don't know what I'm going to call her in the rest of the show. I might call her Nadia, might call her Victoria. If I mix the names up, you guys know exactly who I'm talking about, but it's basically revealed to Huey what we had revealed at the end of last season. And I kind of had mixed thoughts on this because I felt like it was cool that they revealed it at the end of last season, kind of like a nice cliffhanger to leave us off on after all like the carnage that happened in the forest between Butcher, Ryan, Homelander, and Becca and stuff like that. Like, that all makes sense that they kind of left us off on this cliffhanger. I also feel like it would have been cool to kind of experience it with Huey, but also we knew the danger that Huey was in, and right when the dude's nose started bleeding, we're like, okay, he's gone, he's a goner, he's done forever. But it was funny, it was cool. That scene was really great. I just felt like, you know, maybe if we didn't know, it would be even more surprising to us in that moment. But we also get more of that Starlight and Huey romance, and we get introduced to the Alex character. He knew Starlight when they were younger. They had a relationship. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't want to get too provocative here on YouTube, but they had a relationship, and this is like driving Huey insane, and I love how this progresses through the rest of this episode, so I'll talk about that later. And then finally Butcher takes the V, and does he take the V in this episode? Who knows? I mean, okay, he takes the V, you know, we see him kind of his eyes glowing, but then he doesn't really do anything with it in this episode, and then obviously next episode we know what happens. But with that being said, let's move on to the spoiler talk for episode 2. We find out that Nadia is Stan Edgar's daughter. That was insane. Maybe they revealed that in a different episode and I just didn't catch it, but he was like at her house and stuff like that, and I don't know, I was so mind blown in that moment. Like, it was weird because at first I didn't catch it. I was like, okay, maybe meeting, you know, maybe meeting, maybe it's a meeting. And then it was his daughter. Like, I don't know what it was. It just didn't really click for me initially. But with that being said, I mean, the story moves on. We don't really stay on that too much. We kind of go back to like Frenchie and Kamiko. They're all cool. And we get the MM backstory that a lot of the cast was teasing. And the guy who plays Mother's Milk also talked about how we're going to explore his background. And it was really cool. I actually like the way that they implement him into the story with a connection to Soldier Boy. You know, Soldier Boy, he's not introduced in this episode, but we get good connections to him. So I feel like when he gets here, hopefully in episode 4, his connections will already be set. Characters will already have intentions for or against him, and I think that's what's really going to work about him. I was frustrated that he didn't appear in this episode or episode 3, but I think it makes sense because they're setting up, again, relationships that characters are going to have with him. But again, we get that backstory of Mother's Milk, and we find out that Soldier Boy literally killed his family, and this is slowly driving him insane. And then we get to probably the craziest part of all 3 of these episodes combined, in my opinion, which is number 1, the news breaking that Stormfront killed herself on Homelander's birthday. First of all, Homelander has already been going crazy this entire time. Like, he's already been super close to the edge, and this is really what ticks him off. So there's that girl that's on the top of the roof that wants to commit suicide, and her name is Chelsea, and Homelander literally says, you should jump, and he says, like, your life isn't worth anything compared to Stormfront's. Well, Stormfront's, why should you live and she doesn't? Like, it is actually insane what the stuff that Homelander says here. I can't believe, like, they were allowed to make, like, this is wild. Like, you know, obviously episode 1, we had that exploding thing, which I didn't really want to talk about, but I guess we're here to talk about how crazy the show is. So there it is. That was absolutely wild. And the way they just, like, that just happened, and the way that this is just casually dropped, like, this is crazy. But I do want to move on. I don't want to stay on that for too long, because after this, we find out that Butcher did take the V. It wasn't just like a hallucination thing in the first episode. And he fights the gun dude, like the white supremacist dude that fought with Soldier Boy and stuff like that. And he beats the living shit out of him. And he has lasers, and he like slices his head in half along with his car. Like, it is absolutely awesome. And I don't know what it is. The action this season is really just up a notch, and I really love it. I think that the action with Butcher and kind of the way that they pace the action in this season so far has been really good. It's also been very, very interesting though to see the way the action has escalated through all of the seasons. And I feel like that, like the way the action has advanced through all these seasons is shown in just this fight. Like, we start off with Butcher, the guy shoots him like 3 times, I think, and then Butcher falls. He fakes it, he fakes being dead because obviously he's kind of bulletproof now, and he doesn't really give away the fact that he has lasers, but obviously, once we know that he's bulletproof, he definitely took the V. But the way the fight just escalates, and then at the end, obviously, we get the lasers, and then he like lasers like the entire parking garage. Like, it escalates really well, and just the pacing overall of this episode was really good in my opinion. And then we have like that, like the Homelander birthday celebration thing, and Homelander absolutely goes off. But before we get into talking about that, we got to talk about A-Train in this episode because he's kind of trying to revamp himself. Next episode, in episode 3, we get to see kind of his impact and what he's going to be doing the rest of the season, and I hope that story continues because I really am enjoying it. But in this episode, he debuts his new suit, but that was just a little taste of what was to come in terms of like absolute insaneness, because Homelander loses his shit, and he does it on live television this time, and he literally says, "You're not the real heroes, I'm the real hero." And normally in the show, so far in the first 2 seasons, he's always said, "I'm not the hero, you guys are the real heroes, the American people," stuff like that. And it's so crazy to see this come full circle, and he just does not care anymore. And we get more of that in episode 3, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. And in episode 3 in the beginning, he finds out that this is all like boosting his performance, and we'll talk about that later a little bit more in depth. But the fact that Homelander can do this and still succeed, it says a lot about this character and this world, and the fact that The Boys is kind of representative, or actually it's intended to represent our real world at some points. It's scary to see this, and it's also interesting to see this, and it's also exciting to see this because they're playing the story out so well. And then at this point, Homelander is just completely unhinged. But with that being said, now it's time to talk about episode 3, because this is where Homelander goes absolutely off the rails. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I did write down this one specific line from the entire episode where the assistant said, "Not Soldier Boy, not anyone." And the fact that they brought Soldier Boy up for like no reason, like I don't see because in previous seasons they haven't really compared him to Soldier Boy. Like, the fact that they're comparing him to Soldier Boy, that is one thing where it's like, okay, now Homelander has competition in terms of popularity. Like, this was the threshold. Soldier Boy was the threshold, and we find that out right now. And obviously, his rating was at like a 98%, I think, with Starlight as co-captains and stuff like that. And so it's very interesting to see that they brought that up, and I'm excited to see the future duel between these 2 characters. But we see that Homelander is embracing being himself now. He's always sitting in like his room naked when the assistant walks in, and he's absolutely giddy about it. I'm pretty sure he had a boner about it, and he was like, "Oh, that's not from you." And he was talking about that he was just getting excited from the statistics. But like I said before, this show is really representative of our real world. They make it a point to implement stuff from our real world, and they made it specifically talking about demographics of where Homelander kind of went right, and literally he went right on the spectrum. He had a lot more right political leaning people on his side. Their demographics went up for Homelander and stuff like that, and it really represents our world. He talked a lot about cancel culture and people trying to take his life away, and him working for the rich and stuff like that. Like, it was actually crazy to me how blatant they made it in that one scene alone. Like, this entire show so far, even towards the end of episode 3, they really do lean on the political aspects of our real world. But that one scene alone, it really that's when I went to the max, and I really like that. I like that they make it blatant, and I like that they're making it a main focus of the show instead of just throwing stuff in here and there. I think it works when it's more of an essential part. But moving on, we see Huey break his arm. I know I skipped around a little bit there, but he purposely breaks his arm. Like, that was crazy. Like, we saw a little clip of that in the trailer, but it was weird, like, because you know it's gonna happen, so you're sitting there waiting for the tension. You're like, okay, Kimiko's about to break his arm. Boom, she does it, and he screamed. I mean, it's gory, obviously. I mean, it's the boys, but it was at that moment I had to mention it because it was really funny. But then we actually see Starlight start to use a little bit more of her power. She kind of wants to choose the 2 slots that are left in the 7. We get more of the Frenchie and Cherry plot, and this is kind of what I talked about in the spoiler-free part of this video, where I think it's an interesting plot. I think it really is. But I just wish we got more of other characters instead of focusing so much on Frenchie, unless this plot comes to play later in the show, which if it does, I will admit when I'm wrong. So in future reviews, if you guys come back for them, I will definitely be talking about that storyline more, giving my thoughts and updates on it, because it might end up being really good. It just kind of felt like it was out of nowhere for now. But again, it seems like they always wrap up the seasons with a nice bow on it, connecting all the storylines and then leaving a little loose thread for the next season. But with that being said, I do want to move on because there's not much specifically to talk about that storyline yet. But Kimiko, Mother's Milk, Huey, and Butcher go to where Ryan is staying in that safe house area. And we get this little scene between Ryan and Kimiko, and they have this connection where they don't really like their powers. They're scared of hurting other people. I completely understand this. And out of all characters, I wasn't expecting a connection between Kimiko and Ryan, and I really love what they did there. And in this safe house, we get more about Mallory and her background and stuff like that. And I really like the flashback that they did and how Butcher interrupted it, and that's how they kind of split it and went to a different storyline. I thought that was really, really clever, and how they implement flashbacks in the show, and I mean in this episode specifically so far, it works so well. And I'm so happy that they're going to be utilizing it for Soldier Boy, because I think it works really well. But there were some essential things that Mallory said, like she was part of like kind of dropping drugs into the Black communities. We also had the Soldier Boy introduction in there, and then Black Nyor being Black and him not being able to reveal his identity because it would ruin him as a hero in the public eye. There was just a lot of things, and I think that this season really is taking into account the impacts on the Black community that were not only like in that hypothetical world, but stuff from our real world, and again just implementing to the show here and there while still exploring their own stories and how the past of superheroes and Vought and all that kind of stuff impacted Black communities in their world. Again, in between the flashback, like when Butcher stops a flashback to go to the bathroom, we see Homelander talking to Starlight about the potential people that they want to put into the 7, and Homelander says Captain Al-Qaeda. That just blew me away. Like I laughed so hard. Like genuinely, I'm pretty sure that's the most I've laughed at anything in The Boys. Like it was so funny. Like they were already making fun of being like, oh, she's Muslim, like it wouldn't look good in the 7. As a person of color, that was still hilarious to me. But this is where Homelander goes even more off the hinges, and this is where we kind of find out that Homelander is not going down at all anymore. Like he's either gonna win or he's going to destroy the world. And we find this out because he literally tells Starlight, release the video of the plane and all that kind of stuff, and he literally doesn't care about being loved anymore. He says, I am the Homelander. Like bro, it is like he is going to go off. And then we go back and see a little bit more about A-Train and his brother, and we kind of get more of that plot. And like I said in the spoiler-free part of this video, I actually am enjoying this A-Train storyline a lot, and how he's kind of actually trying to help out the Black community. He's not trying to be like a Vought property representing the Black community. He's actually trying to do something about it now, and that shift in he's a Vought corporate person, but now he's actually in the community. I think that's a great story to tell, and I think they can do a lot with that throughout this entire season. And then obviously we return back to the flashback, and we see that the Russians took Soldier Boy, and that Mallory kept that gun that took down Soldier Boy a secret, and that gun could have stopped Homelander. And then obviously, you know, he talks about how he could have saved Becca and defeated Homelander faster and stuff like that, and killed off way more Supes. And he makes a lot of valid points there. He silences Mallory, and I absolutely love that scene, and it makes a lot of sense. And I understand Butcher's rage now, but I think he took it a little bit too far, because as he's about to leave, he tells Ryan, like I'm gonna paraphrase here, but he basically tells Ryan that every time he looks at him, he only sees the kid that killed his wife. that is just, I can't believe he said that to the kid. And then we get the actual reintroduction of the Deep. He has a dinner with Homelander, and I think her name is Ashley. That name is finally coming back to me. I think that's her name. The assistant, or no, she's like the person, you know what I'm talking about, the redhead girl. Homelander, Ashley, and the Deep's wife are all eating lobster, and I think it's like some oysters or something like that around the Deep, and he's absolutely like having a panic attack. And then Homelander makes him eat an octopus. It is so funny. Again, laughing my ass off while I'm watching this. He makes him eat Timothy. Also in this conversation, Homelander compares himself to Martin Luther King Jr. This entire scene, like the entire sequence, just had me bawling. Like, I was laughing so much. And that's what I love so much about the show. I'm gonna talk about my final thoughts in a little bit, but they're balancing comedy, grit, darkness, sadness, sappiness. Like, they're balancing everything so well so far in this season. But that's not even the end of this episode, because then they continue that pageant type of thing where they're introducing the two newest members of the seven, and we find out about hashtag Homelight. I mean, we don't really find out. It's not really a thing. Homelander just makes it up. But he basically confesses to the world that Starlight and Homelander are a thing. They're in love. They're madly in love, and they have a relationship. And I think that Starlight is buying into this, and in the beginning she looks very uncomfortable, but then they tell them to reshoot it and she ends up kissing him, and that's where the episode ends. But I think the reason for this is obviously like she's just on Homelander's good side now, kind of like how Stormfront was, except Stormfront was kind of trying to convince him to use like Nazi stuff, but that's besides the point. Starlight is actually going to be able to use this to stay on the good side of Homelander, and that gives Huey and the other boys time to actually go through with this plan, get Soldier Boy and stuff like that. The ending of this episode was really, really interesting to me, and I'm excited to see where this show goes. And so overall, I gotta say, these first 3 episodes were absolutely spectacular. I would say as a whole, they're better than the first 3 episode premieres for seasons 1 and 2, but I do think episode 3 of season 2 is one of the best episodes from the entire show. So I think that individual episode is better than any of the 3 we got tonight. But as a whole, the story that they're telling so far, the writing, how they balance the comedy, but also the darkness and the emotion, and everything just clicks so far in the show, and I'm very, very excited to see how this story just plays out. But yeah, guys, those are all of my thoughts on The Boys season 3 premiere for episodes 1 through 3. Again, I'm giving away this Billy Butcher Funko Pop, so all you have to do is comment on this video, subscribe, and then come back every week on the weekly reviews for The Boys. Comment on those videos for extra entries. But again, that's it for this video. If you guys made it to the end of the video, let me know your favorite episode from the 3 episode premiere, as well as some of your favorite scenes from the episodes in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.